Hello and welcome. I'm Tracey Polowich, host of the Excellence Connection podcast, where we connect our listeners with subject matter experts, knowledge, and resources to help along their excellence journey. Today, my guest is Paul Schulz. Paul is a retired municipal chief administrative officer with over 36 years of experience in the public sector. And today, I want to learn more about Paul's experience and achievements as a public servant. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you, Tracey. My pleasure.
It's great to have you, and we'll get right into it. So there's no doubt that you've had huge success with your experience, and I just want you to share your background and experience with our audience.
Sure, be happy to do that. I started actually fresh out of university. I have a Bachelor of Commerce at University of Calgary, way back to 1986, but had the opportunity to join the Municipal internship program that was put on by the provincial government. And honestly, because of what they were paying, I chose Airdrie, which was very close to Calgary. Little did I know that 36 years later, I would be retiring from that very same organization. So my career progression was first year as a municipal intern, and I got to learn all aspects of local business. Fell in love in land use planning and development, and spent some time in there for 10 years. And then roughly from about 1995 to 2010, so about 15 years, I was a senior manager, director of various departments in Airdrie. And then from 2010 to my retirement day last August 2022, I was the CAO of Airdrie. The only other couple things I'd like to add, because I probably will go with some of the things I'm going to talk about. I have a love for business. And I think coming out of business school into local government, which I knew nothing about, my approach has always been to run it in a business-like fashion, everything I do. So I actually did take up the challenge in the mid-90s and also got my master's of business in innovation and entrepreneurship. So just thought I'd add that for some context as the discussion goes.
That's awesome. What a remarkable career. And, you know, your tenure leading City of Airdrie has obviously been successful. And I was wondering, what do you contribute to your success?
It's a great question, because 36 years actually in local government, but any organization I think is probably fairly unique. So I'd start, there's always a little luck, I think. Circumstance and luck, so I'm going to admit that off the get-go, because things don't always work out the way you plan them. But and they didn't in this case. But every time I maybe thought of leaving local government or doing something different, just an exciting new opportunity came along for me. So I just want to put that there. But reflecting on how I made it so long, or was able to rise and be a leader, I think first of all, it's about relationship building. It's about, and for me, it's really was a lot of being who I am. And I'm very fortunate, maybe this is where the luck comes in. I'm very fortunate that as I became a senior director, the city manager I worked for very much had values aligned with myself. So I could do the things I believed in, and I could do I could do great work with the values. It was just a natural fit. And then of course, when you become the boss yourself, Again, very fortunate that culture that we had started to build, I got to be me again and really impart that and I don't know. It sounds kind of I don't want it to sound like I'm conceding or being conceited, but my who I am, I guess my style, my values lent itself very well to the Airdrie situation. So here I am.
It sounds like it was a very natural connection and fit for you. And I just want to learn more about the progression and kind of what led you through your path. You talked a little bit about in your intro about your love for business. And when we've spoken before, Paul, you've mentioned that you often endeavor to run the municipality as a business. And so I'd like to know, what exactly do you mean by that? And how did you achieve it at Airdrie?
So first, when I talk that way, local government and for-profit business, they aren't the same. So I want to distinguish. I do believe, though, out of any level of government, local government has characteristics that are very much like running a business. And when I say that, what I mean more specifically, it is the only level of government in Canada that has to balance a budget at the end of the day. So it's against the law to run deficits. So by that very nature, your rate at your margin that you're playing with is zero. And so you have to manage, people, projects, and services and everything with the money coming in, matching the money going out. So to me, that's a very simple, I guess, comparison. Most businesses would have a profit margin. Our profit margin was zero. Secondly, and I will note there are differences, but as a leader, you work for a board of directors in a way that a public company would. And that board of directors represents the community and all of the ratepayers, the people who invest their money in that community. They buy homes, they buy businesses, and they pay taxes, and they all do that to maintain and increase the value of their investment in the community. So by the nature of, say, being a city manager, you are reporting to a board of directors. And I think the roles of a CEO, CAO are similar in those in those ways. Now, they do depart. Your board of directors change. You don't hand pick them. They get voted in. There are certainly differences, but what I'm talking about is the mentality of what you do. The third characteristic, and I think really, really important, and what I always used was basically a local government as a service business. And what makes it both challenging and a lot of fun, though, is you have a lot of lines of service, whereas other businesses might have different lines of products or products and services. Local government has, I think in Airdrie, you're looking at 40 to 50 lines of business. And each one, I always try to focus staff and leaders on looking at their particular business, whether that's running a rec center, a fire department, garbage service, transit service. It's all about running that line of business. And that's the characteristics of it. And that's the basis of, I guess, my belief system.
I love that analogy of looking at your constituents as investors in the community, with organizational excellence and some of the key management areas. One of the things that we look at are customers, and it's hard sometimes for municipal organizations to think of those constituents as customers, and thinking that there's a parallel of marketing even the type of marketing that a private company does versus a public sector. But there are little key things about marketing with respect to attracting residents and businesses to your community and that kind of thing. So even along those lines, there's some similarity. And I also appreciated what you mentioned with respect to the board of directors and the comparison of that to a council. And we'll talk about that a bit more in detail a little bit later. But what I wanted is this time is for you to share some examples of that demonstrate how Airdrie operated more as a a private sector business, if there's some specific examples of that.
It's appropriate, but you're breaking up on me at certain points. I think the question was to give some examples of how Airdrie may have done some things more like a private business. Is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, I know every municipality has budgets. It's the biggest policy document that they have. But I also think it's very important to distinguish, especially when you're leading a group of these lines of business, lines of service, that a budget also includes what often referred to, I think, municipalities, business plans, action plans, but it's really all one. It's creating that touch point, who your customers are, what your services are for them, how you're measuring those, are you doing a good job? And then you start attaching dollars and resource to them. And and really important to track through the year of whether you're meeting your targets, whether you're meeting your objectives, whether you're watching the trends of measurement. And by measurement, it's reaching out to customers as well. How satisfied are they with the service? We spent a lot of time surveying, not just broad community survey, but individual departments. I would ask for them to keep in touch, whether it was focus groups or mini surveys or comment cards or things that you would see in business as well. That's one. Probably, I don't know if I go to some of my pillars or beliefs, but the linking it to budget, I think every business should have strong fiscal responsibility, and that's especially true when you are responsible to the taxpayers of your community. And so you're linking what they want. You're hopefully really in tune with what your customers want because they're paying for it. And so then it's your responsibility to manage those dollars. So that's customer focus and fiscal management. But then I think as you proceed, keep trying to draw comparisons here. A business will always want to improve their profit margin, and you do that in two ways. You make money, more money, you expand your customer base, or you look for ways to save. I would say in local government, there are limited ways to make more money. I would say there's not no ways, and I can give you a couple of examples how you do that. But you're more going to get that on the saving side. So being entrepreneurial or creative in projects you take on, or maybe not narrowly focusing on staff have to do that. Maybe you contract out services. And again, after I go through this, maybe you want me to use some more concrete examples. But the saving side, and what I was going to say too was, I think it's also very important to continually look for efficiency and process. And we see all kinds of systems out there. I mean, back in my day, it was called TQM, total quality management, and now you see things like lean processes and marching you through that. But the point is, it's continually looking at your business and your service and seeing how you can do better for your customer.
Yeah, so you mentioned there's some possibilities for generating additional revenue, and that is a big challenge for municipalities. So maybe, are there some concrete examples of that?
Yeah, in the Airdrie case, I mean, I'll give you two of my favorite, but back in the early 2000s, we're rapidly growing community, growing out of rented city hall space, and needed to find space for employees, needed an identity. Again, a little bit of luck, but I think a little bit of ingenuity. There was an old supermarket in our downtown, and we approached them, and at first they did not want to sell that space. So we kept looking, but we were looking for a model where we could lessen the burden on the taxpayer. What ended up happening is, in further dialogue, the mall owners came back and said, well, if you buy the supermarket, can you buy the whole mall? So this was also retail, banking institutions, all on 5 acres in downtown Airdrie. So we put together a business plan. We actually went to the provincial government. We created a for-profit corporation, and essentially the profits from tenants like Scotiabank, like Alberta Treasury Branch, pizza places, helped fund the conversion of a supermarket into a city hall, and really minimal to no impact on the Airdrie taxpayer, just to create space and presence in the downtown for staff. So that's one smaller example. Many mid-sized cities face is getting into the transit business. It's very important for a well-rounded community, but it's a service that notoriously costs money. The profit margin, there I go again. The return on that is something like 10 to 20% usually. And in fact, in Airdrie, your local transit, it is 10, 15%. What you have to look at is your whole circumstance, and we're beside Calgary, number one. And even though we didn't appreciate necessarily our rural neighbors for putting up a giant mall between Calgary and Airdrie, and it became quite the debate, we were able to translate that to an opportunity because it was a desire point for people to commute either to Calgary or to get transportation to the mall and back. And so in partnerships with both Calgary and the Cross Iron Mills Mall, we were able to set up contracts, and that became a profit center that helped offset the local and access Airdrie type transit. And for many years we broke even. I would tell you now it still costs a little bit, but the incoming flow of revenue certainly helps offset that.
Wow, that's awesome. And just hearing you say, expanding your thoughts around what you're doing to look at where you have opportunities to capitalize on, that's one of the main practices of excellence and high performance in the very basic strategic planning. So awesome, good for you. So you mentioned about Paul's Pillars, and that is another topic that I would like to have you share, because I think there's a lot of great information in your description of what you have called and others around you have come to know as Paul's Pillars. So if you could share with us, what are Paul's Pillars and how have they brought benefit to your management style?
Yeah, so first, management style beyond anything else I talked is about it's really, in my mind, about strong people. And I'll get into details on these. Customer focus, number 2. Number 3 is strong fiscal management. And then we have talked about this. It wasn't originally a Paul's pillar. It was a 3-legged stool that turned into 4 because my communication people liked a nice round circle that we could share and talk to people about. And that became, and it makes a lot of sense. It's inherent anyways, which is continuous improvement. So you really have 4 quadrants or 4 legs to the stool, however you want to describe that. The whole purpose, I think, of branding this for me, first of all, was as your organization gets bigger, well, I think whether you're small or big, it is so important to have a line of sight or communication from, your highest management down to the people doing the work, right directly with the customers. What is this organization all about? What are the belief systems? What are the foundations? And went to great lengths to do that and know what. So definitely knew what I and my senior team would stand for. So these all work hand in hand, but strong people culture without strong people around me, without good employees. I mean, that's the single biggest thing that will irk taxpayers or customers or waste their money. As much as you can, you hire right first. When you see that there's problems or no fits, you try and solve that sooner than later. And you build a culture where people come to work. It's when work is meaningful, challenging, fun. It's not too difficult for them to be engaged and to understand all this, to learn that sort of thing. So, and just with that, my belief was so strong. I probably had one of the best human resource departments in all the local government. But I just thought everything, and we had everything from learning, a couple ladies that worked in that area, to change management, to your traditional human resource things, as well as organizational development, strategic planning, resource. Customer focus, I actually talked a lot about that already, but really, I think it's so important to be in tune with customers, and we would run annual citizen satisfaction surveys. And then from there also, I asked individual departments, teams to really stay in touch in various methods, and that would form part of their business plan and the measures they were looking for. Fiscal management, of course, and especially as you grow, I think what I'm learning is there needs to be investment not only into the today of fiscal management in local municipalities, it's the tomorrow. And that's, the more you can build systems, the more you can plan ahead. It's like your own home. You need to know your mortgage payments. You need to know how old your car is getting, because you may have to invest in one soon. You know your kids are growing a certain age. You may want to start putting away for their vacation. It's no different than a vacation. Education. Depending on your kids, it could be a vacation.
Could be.
So drawing this parallel, it is so important, I think, to start getting into asset management, to get into 10-year capital planning, which again really gets you out there and asking your public, your customers, what it is they want in their community. But then intertwining that whole aspect of how are we going to afford this? How are we going to fund this? And the more lead time you have for those, that it's through grants, it's through taxes, it's through innovative things, but you don't know what you don't know. And I think if I could offer anything to municipalities, and I'm now working in some others, what I am seeing, and smaller ones, I am seeing that what would really aid them is more concrete plans going into the future. So that's the financial side, and then continuous improvement. That's number one. You don't know what you need to improve on if you don't measure and you don't seek out. So that's really important. And sometimes, and it is difficult to get the municipal mindset to think that way. It's in time, it's in dollars. I also think, especially when it comes to projects or being open to some innovative practices, I would always tout that, well, okay, show me a business case, show me a cost benefit, show me what the return would be. And if I was thrilled with, oh, this could work, then you take something forward to council, something unique, and you try that out. And the conversion of the shopping center to City Hall is a big example of that. But you're always looking for that, crunching those numbers on the cost benefit and then also social benefit, I guess. Sorry, I probably went on a little there.
No, not at all. I am, just hearing about the pillars, their values, their, what you stand for. And I can see how it would be very easy and rewarding to work for you as the leader, to know what to expect. And I can tell that a lot of planning and thoughtfulness went into your leadership in those areas, and obviously carrying that on into your work now. So it's not hard for me to see, from that description of your pillars and the work that you did, how you achieved such great success over your career. So thank you for sharing that. So this next question is, I have quite a lengthy preamble, but just bear with me because I just want to set it up a little bit. So in my calculations, with your 36 years of service with Airdrie, you would have seen about 11 municipal elections, and 5 of those about as city manager.
Yeah.
And so with that, you must have seen some quite significant change and direction over the years. With your
you're looking for it? Yeah, you know what? Yes, absolutely.
And so it's my opinion that the changing council is one major difference that we have and we deal with in the public sector that's not as prevalent in the private sector. And that this potential change of municipal elected officials. So in Canada, I think all provinces, all municipalities in all the provinces, there's a few territories that don't follow the same 4-year election cycle. But in Alberta, we have a 4-year election cycle. So that potential for change of multiple elected officials every 4 years can create substantial change in the municipality. And for this reason, I believe that municipal leaders need to have some really good change management skills. And you and I've talked about this, and you share that philosophy. I think, it's very difficult it's difficult enough for the CAO and directors that work really closely with council to understand and embrace the change that council can bring about. But for managers and staff further down the line that are further removed from council's discussions and decisions, that can be even more difficult. And so I just wanted to have you describe, what you did within your organization to implement and develop change management practices and skills.
That's a good one, Tracey. Can I just preface it? And again, I'm going to say I was lucky. I don't know, it sounds kind of weird, but Airdrie for my entire career from 1990 on was one of the fastest growing communities in Alberta, Canada, some years. So the whole concept of change, that happened all the time with many aspects of the business. So now I'll answer your question, or I'll try to answer your question. And I agree with you. Changing councils, it's actually a very stressful time for staff, for the city manager too, to be honest with you. And it is a big departure from my comparison with business, for sure. More than just changing though, in a business, your board of directors almost recruited, and they're recruited for skills, knowledge, and experience. When council's elected, sorry, and this, I don't want to tick council members off, but I think you need to be a Canadian citizen, 18 years old, and no criminal record. That's being very facetious, but what I found over the years, I would say generally most that came on council were there for, they wanted to do well for their community. They were there for really good reasons. You do have some that are there more for political aspirations or political beliefs. And almost hate to say this, but as time's gone on and you get paid to go in those things, some people actually do it for a job. So I think it's really important when you get to your new council or your council members as a CAO. What I tried to do the most was get to know them. If you're lucky, you only have to get to know a couple every term. But sometimes, it's 3 or 4 because there's a big changeover, and that's challenging for sure. But you need to sit down with them. I tried to do it individually, and you're asking, what motivates them. You're almost interviewing them. What are the things you want to get done in your term? You're trying to get to know them as much, and as they're trying to get to know you. You're building that relationship, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Back to the relationship building.
Yeah, and then I also expanded that to my leadership team, and because early on you do orientations, you do strategic planning. So I would have each of my directors lead, of course, their areas. Hopefully we're able to have a night or an afternoon in their facilities. So if it's public works, for instance, you can tour them around. You can actually feel the equipment, and you can talk to the director in charge, and because they're going to be the face at council meetings there. So it's again creating those relationships. The other piece though, and I think I don't know if we're the only municipality in Alberta, but it sort of started 8 years ago, where you realize as you get bigger, and municipalities are made of systems, like all kind of business systems, but it's pay systems or how you set up doing council reports or anything. Organizations have systems, and as you get bigger, you make change to systems, and change impacts people. And so I think that was recognized early on with myself and my human resource people. And so we offered change management training to all of our leadership group, and really with the emphasis to, bring the people along with you. They do the work. Listen to them as well, but do the full change management process, and it'll be easier then to implement it's new software or new record keeping or whatever it is. That evolved again as we got bigger, and I think developed a little bit of traction, that we actually hired a professional change manager, change management professional. And I think for a time period there was 1.5 staff in that area, and that really would help with larger projects, transitions, system changes. And I think, so if it was say an IT system change, you're bringing in a new building inspection permitting software or something. It's one thing. If you're in the municipal world and you just plop that in there, you get lots of reaction, and it goes a lot smoother. Again, if you think ahead, it's not just about the IT change, it's about the people's response to the change. And if they're part of it from the beginning and through the process, it just makes the change a lot easier. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm a huge believer again in people, and people respond to change a lot better if they're a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's a big area that is overlooked in municipal government. And I love to hear what you've done, and that we're sharing that in this podcast, because I hope that others will think about that and consider it as something that's important. I think it would make a big difference in the success for municipalities.
Yes, 100% agree.
So I know my last question I ask all of my guests is, how do you remain in the growth zone? In other words, what do you do to deepen your growth mindset?
Wow. So I'm new to this retirement gig. I don't know. So I haven't had a problem so far. That's what I wanted to say. If you're asking me, I think my pat answer, I do like to read, and this has been a great opportunity to actually read some fiction books and things for fun. But as retirement's transpired, I don't know if it's because I have built a network, or I just like talking to people. I seem to get into things so much so that I'm almost a little busier now than I was before. So things like, and I really, opportunities come along, and I think you just got to identify them. But in Airdrie, through my former economic development department, they helped guide business through a program called Smart Start, new forming business, and they're able to bring in mentors and help those new businesses with people that are experienced there and help them set up their business. So that's been very successful in Airdrie. They just introduced, as I was leaving, something called Advanced Smart. And advanced doesn't mean me. Advanced Smart means the businesses have gone from that growth stage, or from the startup stage, to now a high growth stage. And so I think there's about 10 to 12 business mentors that have. So I joined that program. They figured that I ran a high growth business. I think I probably did. So see, I convinced the private sector enough that they got me on the mentorship list. As businesses sign up for this, we spend mentoring sessions with them. And so that keeps the brain sharp, and actually in areas that I haven't done before. I think I told you as well. So now I'm doing a little contract work for a smaller municipality, and that's been a lot of fun. And then thirdly, I'm just helping on the land development side, because I know the planning processes. Some people I was able to be in contact. So I haven't, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but things seem to find me whether I look for them or not.
Well, and that's not
and
surprising.
My mind is so busy, I'm tired all the
time. It's not surprising, obviously, with your track record. You will continue to be in demand, and it's, after speaking with you and you sharing your philosophies with respect to municipal government and running as a business, it doesn't seem like a stretch at all that you would have very good knowledge and mentorship for any type of business, private or public sector. So I'm excited for you and hope that you are able to find balance in your retirement so that you can enjoy it and not be burnt out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
It's my pleasure and honor. Thank you.
Thank you.